Hello everyone, and welcome to a Gdevelop tutorial. Today we're just going to be checking out some of the basics of Gdevelop, and this might not match some of the other content on this channel, but I hope you enjoy it, I hope you learn something from it, and I just want to do this because I think Gdevelop's a really good game engine, and it's really underused. I don't see many video tutorials at all on Gdevelop, and I just wanted to help contribute. So, when you first open up the engine here, it's completely free. The only paid aspects are you can get a subscription, but that's very, very cheap, and it's not required for anything other than building your game and exporting it more than twice a day, and some other smaller features. But for the most part, it's free, open source, great engine, still in active development, and there are some new features. If you look on Trello, new features coming up that should be very cool. And the other great benefit of this is it's completely code-free. Of course, if you want to add code, there is an option to add, I believe it's JavaScript code, into your games. But anyway, enough talking about the engine. I'll get into more of that in the tutorial. So here we have the engine. There's the logo here, and it says, Gdevelop's an easy-to-use game creator with no programming language to learn. That's very true, but this is just a quick video to get you started. So you have open a project and create new project, or search the documentation, which that's going to be very useful. I can't teach you everything in these video tutorials, and neither can other people, so documentation is going to be very good, very useful. I've already made a couple of projects, but I'm not going to be showing those in this video because this is just a basics video. I will be showing off some of those in other videos, though, so you can look forward to that. If you hit create a new project here, here's some other cool aspects of it. Don't worry about that. You've got some starter projects. You've got simple platformer, simple 8-bit space shooter. This is really good. I've not gotten to this point yet. Isometric games. This is only a 2D engine, by the way. I will say this is only 2D. There is no 3D functionality besides this isometric game. This is a cool physics game. This does have a physics engine, but I haven't really gotten into that. Relaxing game. Some other game feel, particle effects demos. There are also some examples here, but mostly you're just going to want to stick to these if you're just starting out. And of course, besides these starter games, you've also got an empty game, which I'm going to show you with the empty game. Now, this is the project manager, this menu right here. This is important. This is where you'll tweak some of the property. This is where you'll do a lot of stuff. This is a menu that's important. So right here you can see game engine. You have the properties, or game settings, sorry. You have the properties of your game. This is where you name the game. This is where you do a lot of other stuff, important settings for your game. But we're not going to get into this right now. I'll make a separate video on that. But these are important. You've also got global variables. If you have any knowledge of coding languages, or game engines coding languages, you'll know what variables are. We'll try to explain that later on. You can see variables that are shared amongst all the scenes, and I'll get into scenes after this. You can see icons here. This is just what your game will look like, what the icons will be on different platforms if you ever release your games. And then you've got resources here, which shows all the resources you use across your game. You're probably not going to use this very much. I don't know if other people use this a lot. I don't. That was in game settings. Then you've got scenes here. Now, a scene is where stuff happens. You have to click to add a new scene, and then you go into a scene. Now, this is the main editor, which we'll get into. But this area right here will show all of your scenes. Like, for example, if you have multiple levels, you might want to make each level a scene. Or if you have a menu screen, that would be a scene. It depends on how you work, but I usually make all of my separate things a scene. A scene, I'm sorry. Might not be the best way to work, but that's something. External events. This is something if you have, like, see, because that's another important part. You can't have a game engine without any kind of coding, because then you can only do, like, one kind of game. Like, there's a cool, I wouldn't really call it a game engine, more of a game creation game kind of thing. called Bloxels that I've used before. It's a really cool thing, allows you to do a lot of cool stuff in it, but you can only make one kind of platformer, and it's pretty restrictive. It was cool for me before, but now knowing what I can do in something like Gdevelop is not the best. So that's events. And events are the actual logic of the game, and we'll get into that later. So external events are something like if you want to program how the enemies in a platformer game work, for example, but you don't want to copy over the code for every single scene, you use that as an external event, and you can import external events. Now, I've also got external layouts. I haven't gotten much into external layouts, but it's basically where you lay out a scene, and then you can import the layout of that scene to other scenes. That's probably pretty complicated. I wouldn't worry about it. I might do another tutorial on that later. And then functions and behaviors. This is a pretty cool thing. This is extensions. And we're going to get into that at some point too. Gdevelop comes with some extensions that you can install automatically, and extensions are a cool part of the engine. But that is the project manager right there. So, now, got a scene. This is where the magic happens. This is where the games get created. Now, right now, you don't see much. But this right here, this is where your game will be laid out. This is where the objects panel, so this is where all of your game elements will be. This is the layers panel. You probably won't be using the layers panel much just starting out, but you can do things here like change the background color. Now, objects, this is important. If you hit add new object, there are different kinds of things you can add. This comes with an asset store, but I don't believe they're actually selling any assets at the moment. I believe they're all free. But I haven't gotten into that yet. But you can make a new object from scratch, and you have multiple different choices. Mostly what you're going to be using are sprites, tiled sprites, and then after that it depends on how you work and what you want to have your game do. For example, text. If you use actual text, you can also use sprites and make them look like text, but this is a useful thing for me. And particles, this is something that's also pretty cool, but I haven't gotten into much. Now let's say we just want to make a sprite. So we've created a new object that is a sprite. So you have the object name here. Now you can't have any spaces in here. Let me title this player, and then I put a space character, and then hit apply. That won't work. So we can't do that. I'm not sure if that showed up for you. I'm using OBS. So it just defaulted back to new object though. So you have to do something like player, wait, move my mouse out of the way, character, can't type. Sorry guys. Player character, that would work. You can do player, underscore character, or you can just do player. That's what I usually title my main character. And then you hit add an animation here, and you can either hit add here, which will add something already on your computer. I believe it supports PNGs, JPEGs, GIFs, not quite sure on that. Or, something that I find really cool is you can edit with Piskel. Now, I'm not sure if my screen would be recording this, but if you hit edit with Piskel, it will bring you the really cool Piskel editor. Yeah, it's not recording that. I'm very sorry. No, give me a few seconds, I'll show you Piskel. So I wasn't able to record the Piskel window in the first part of the video. This is actually being recorded the next day from the rest of the video. This is the Piskel art program, I guess you would say, pixel art thing. So you have a bunch of cool features here, and it's just a very simple and nice pixel art editor. I still am unable to record that, so unfortunately we will not be able to see that in any future videos I do on Gdevelop. Sorry about that, guys. That's it for future me. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, I'm sorry, guys, for that, too. I'll have to edit that out. But I wasn't able to get Piskel to work right here. I will show some footage, hopefully, of Piskel It's a really cool pixel art editor. I suppose you can use it for non-pixel art too. But anyway, it comes built in with Gdevelop. I believe it also comes with a sound effect creator, but I won't worry about that. So just give me a few seconds. I will create a little character. I'm not an artist, so this is mostly just for me to make programmer art, while Audrey, who, if you've seen this channel, hopefully you'll know Audrey, does all the art for my games, and I just import it in here. But Pascal is really cool for just, like, programmer art, and if you are an actual artist doing, or game jams, it's very useful for game jams too. It's very useful. Very cool feature of the editor. This is not actually a thing made by Gdevelop. It was already existed. It's a website that you can find also. So I'll just go ahead and quickly make a player character. I'll be right back. So, alright. I'm back. I've made a player character. Like I said, I'm not an artist. This is the best I could do. So, now you can also name these animations, and these animations are fairly important, but I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. This is just an overview. So now you hit apply, and there you go. Now you have your player. But this is just the player's sprite, because you also have behaviors for objects. And this is where you actually, this also is important. Now if you add a behavior, there are different behaviors you have here, but for what we're doing right now, we need this to be platformer character. And now you have different kinds of controls that you can mess with, but I'm not going to get into that here. So there you go. Now this guy will be a player character. So that's nice. You can also test your games by pressing this button here, but I can't show it to you at the moment, unfortunately. I'll have to get that fixed at some point. Yeah. You know what? Give me a few more seconds. Let me see if I can do it. Alright, so I've managed to allow us to see the preview. So right now you can see there's nothing because I have removed the player. But if we add the player back here, you can see when we test it, he just falls because there's no ground, which is a problem. So, let's create some ground quickly. Just a sprite, add an animation. Give me a few seconds here. I'm just going to do some art. Sorry. Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. We don't want this to be a sprite. Sorry about that. We can remove this or delete this because we don't need to do that. We want this to be a tiled sprite, and this will display an image repeatedly over an area. This is what you want to use for something like ground. So you have to select an image, or I'm going to create an image in Pascal. And now I'm just going to make this black. And I will add in a little bit of gray. And I'm very sorry. Might edit some of this out in the final video. But here we go. We've got a ground texture right there. Now, if I drag this onto the scene, that's how you put in objects, by the way. Drag it onto the scene. You can see when I click there, it gives me, if I move over here, it gives me some options to move it like this. And you can see it brings in more of the texture. Whereas if you drag the player like that, it's just going to make the player wider. And now I'll delete that player and bring in a new player because I've messed with it. So now we need to apply a behavior to this object, and we'll apply platform. So now you have the most basic of games. Your player can move, jump, and do things around this. Gdevelop also has a very good, I'm glad that it has a built-in platformer engine. So that's the most basic of games. But if you want to expand anything beyond that, you're going to have to go into this, the events screen. Now, the events screen is where you add logic. So for example, let's say I add a new object, new sprite, add an animation. Let's just make this a red block, and I'm sorry you can't see this. but I'm just going to make a red block, save it like that, and now let's say we want the player to die if he touches the red block. Well, we've just got to go into the events. Now, if you hit add a new event and you have add a condition and add action. Now, I'll be going through some of these conditions and actions later on, but let's say that the player, this is where the magic happens. You have player, and then you have all these options here. But what we're going to pick is, where is it? Aha, collision. So let's say if it has a collision with this, right here, we hit OK, we hit add action, and we will say that we will make the player be deleted. So there we go. That is a simple event. Now, things can get much more complicated from here. For example, you can add a sub-event, and you can have you can add other things, like you can add a comment. That's useful. I haven't used that enough, but I really should. And so, this is a little complicated at this point. It gets much more complicated from here, but it's much more manageable than any other game engine. And it's much more flexible than those game creation tools like Super Mario Maker 2 or Bloxels like I was talking about before. Very fun things, but not very flexible. So now that we have that, let's say the player collides with that. It's gone. So that's how you do things with events. So that is the basics of Gdevelop. There are other options and things that you can get that go into much deeper things, and thank you for watching. This is just the basics of Gdevelop. We'll get into other things with other tutorials. Please subscribe if you want to see that and other entertaining content from this channel. And that's about it. I will be going into more detail with some things later, and I hope you've enjoyed. Please subscribe, and that was Basics of Gdevelop, quick tutorial, and have a great day. Bye!